Hello and welcome to one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu which are very significant from your UPSC and your KPSC examination point of view. Before we understand what these articles are in greater detail, a quick gentle reminder. Spardha Lines has been conducting a test series for all those of you who have been preparing for the CTI, PDO and the KAS examinations. Those of you who have taken this test series, there were 3 tests that were earlier conducted. You would have got to know what are the type of questions that can be asked, what are the questions that have been asked in the past as well. So in order to continue with the test series, the 4th test will be conducted tomorrow, which is on 17th of December 2023 from 10 am to 11:30 am. This test will be completely free, and for all those of you who wish to take up, please do given the necessary information given in the description box. Let's get started and look into the first article for the day. The first article here is speaking about opportune moment to rediscover Chennai's hydrology. What are we speaking about? The article here is speaking about increasing cases of flooding taking place in the city of Chennai. This concept can also be applied to a couple of other cities in India. For example, the author takes the example of Chennai, how the city has transformed over a period of time, and because of this ultimate transformation, it has resulted in encroachment in couple of places, and at the same time, the floodplains which were once part of this particular region is now being acquired for the developmental purposes, and as a result of this complete change, complete urbanization that has been taking place in Chennai for the last few years, this has resulted in what is called as increasing cases of flooding, says the author. Similar such measures have also been taken up, similar such impact has also been felt, let's say for example in Delhi, it has also been felt in Mumbai, it has also been felt in Bengaluru as well. So the author goes on to say that if we have to take the example of Chennai, the city has transformed so much, the city has grown so much, it has outsmarted itself so much that this has resulted in flood-like situations, primarily because we are not able to keep up to the tanks, the lakes, the rivers and ensure that these are kept up in the optimum level. So the author goes on to say, whenever we have an issue, what do we speak about? We speak about climate change. But have we ever spoken about the manpower changes that we have introduced? Are we speaking about the anthropogenic induced factors which is resulting in the flood? So the author goes on to say that as much as it may be because of climate change manifestations, but more weightage has to be given to the human induced factors. Anthropogenic induced factors is what is this article in gist. Let us try and understand what is the author trying to communicate. The author in this case goes on to say that Chennai has suffered from serious impact of floods in 2005, 2015 and again in 2023. Although each one of these floods is unique in their own way, the impact has been devastating, increasing every year after year. What do we understand by this? The article here is basically speaking about increasing cases of flooding that is resulting in the city of Chennai. This has been continuously seen over a period of time, and that is due to massive urbanization that is taking place. Let's say for example there is a river. If there is excessive flood water that occurs, or we have a city that is built up, the city is able to take up so much amount of water. If there is excess water, as this excess water flows into, what we have is a lake that is constructed or it is built, or we also have is a tank which will take in or soak in the extra water. So this will ultimately prevent the flooding in that city. But what is the major cause of concern? The major cause of concern is, if let's assume this is the river that is flowing in the city of Chennai or in any other city for that matter. Let's say we have a floodplain which is about 500 meter on either side of the river or the lake. What would happen? This particular place, that is the floodplain, would be encroached by the people, and at the same time because they have been living in that particular area for a very long period of time, they have the possession of that particular property, eventually the land will be granted for such people as well. So the rivers which is flowing in a designated area would have the floodplain for a very long period of time. This would have safeguarded the extra water, the additional water. In case there is extra water, it will reach the floodplains in itself. But now what has happened? Now you would have this particular area taken over by the real estate mafia or by the people who have taken over, and there is encroachment in this particular place, and whenever there is excessive water, there is no water to go through, there is no extra tank, there is no extra lake, and as a result this water gets inundated into these regions. So for all those who wanted Lakeview apartments, now it has been taken over, and ultimately we do not have answers to these flood-like situations. These tanks were constructed in such a way that surplus from the upstream tank served as a feeder to a downstream tank. Unfortunately, these tanks are neglected, silted up with broken bunds and control structures. In addition, catchment areas, floodplains, feeder and supply chains, and even the water spread area in many of these tanks are heavily silted and encroached. What do I mean by it? Let's say, for example, we have an industrial outlet that is present, or there are a couple of people who work in the waste collection as well, or whenever you have a river or a lake or a tank that is constructed, there could be lot of deposition of the silt or the mud like conditions. So when there is lot of deposition that takes place into that area, the filling capacity of this tank obviously shrink. Imagine that there is a tank in place, you keep adding a lot of mud into it, so the water retaining capacity of this tank, or for that matter the lake, will obviously start reducing, and people keep dumping the waste into this place as well. Plastic gets dumped into this particular region, and as a result this entire tank or the lake that is persisting in that part will obviously not have the water retaining capacity. So this should ultimately be changed, this should ultimately be revamped, and this should ultimately be transformed or cleaned every now and then. But is that happening in the present situation? No. Why? That is because people do not care about these rivers. Whenever we speak about floods or whenever we speak about inundation of water, we throw our voices, but what are the measures we are taking to keep up to this particular tank? Nothing. In fact, we do have the local authorities as well. The local authorities, they step into picture only when there is inundation of water and flooding, rather than taking the proactive approach. So what do? They take up the reactive approach. Only when there is flood, they immediately step in, they start working on it. This is not the right way to do. There has to be a proactive approach. Just before monsoon, which resumes in June, July, August, we should have an idea that monsoon is for sure going to strike a particular city. So even before that, 1 to 2 months prior that, there has to be desilting that takes place. Remove this excess, remove the waste that is present in the tanks and the lakes, and ultimately ensure that this entire area is cleaned even prior to the occurrence of an incident. So in addition to the catchment area, floodplains, feeder and supply chains, even the water spread in many areas are heavily silted. So we have to remove it. The net result is a double disadvantage. Water storage in these little tanks is very little and runoff is very high. This is what we just discussed. So whenever there is more silt that is present, the water retaining capacity will be less, and as a result, because there is more silt into it, there is excess flow that is taking place. It enters the other areas. Had this tank been cleaned, water would have come and dropped into this region, but now the water retaining capacity is less. So what will happen? There is inundation along the roads, and people will not be able to use the roads and the infrastructure efficiently. A study on the urban and peri-urban water dynamics showed that interconnected hydrological conditions, map water boundaries have also been missing. What do we understand by this? Let's say, for example, there is one lake here. If at all there is excess water that is present in this lake, there has to be a small channel which should connect to another lake, and if it is getting inundated and it is filled, there has to be another channel which will connect to another series of lakes. So there has to be a series of lakes that are present, or a channel that is constructed, whereby if at all there is excess water, this should connect one waterway to another waterway, and ultimately this should go to the sea, so on and so forth. But is that happening right now? No, not at all, because this interconnectivity or the interconnectivity that is present between the tanks and the lakes is also being lost. And subsequently, as we initially discussed, there are a lot of encroachments that have taken place. If we consider the city of Chennai, the city of Chennai is blessed, says the author. How? There are a couple of rivers flowing into these areas. These rivers will also have to be cleaned. There is pollution that is emanating because of the industrial dumping, not taking care of the rivers. So this also has to be revamped. The author takes into picture the Costalia River. This can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. So the Coasas Talaivar River flows through the northern part of Chennai. So where is Coasas Talaivar River? It is in Chennai. Then we have the Kuam, which takes care of the central Chennai, the Adyar, which caters to the southern Chennai, and further south the Palar, which carries the flow. Each of these rivers feed numerous tanks before reaching the Bay of Bengal. This is the Buckingham Canal, which cuts through all four rivers in close proximity to the sea. Unfortunately, these major drainage systems are in pretty bad shape due to heavy encroachments, more so on the floodplains, and as a result, continuity of the devastation of the rivers continue, increase in the flood takes place, and ultimately people are the sufferers in all these cases. Then there is gravity and velocity due to sludge and silt deposits. Then there is missing links between these tanks which need to be restored, which is what we just discussed, and restored to their original capacity, or where possible even double the capacity. So the author in this particular case, if at all the encroachments are prevented, interconnectivity is enhanced, we should be able to restore the original rivers to their optimum capacity, even if it is less, which means we have to double the storage capacity, says the author, for which a year-long attention and maintenance is necessary, and not the cosmetic intervention such as riverfront and canal front development. So in all these cases, what we require is year-long attention and not just one stray of incident. So the degree of urban expansion in the Chennai city has been one of the fastest in the country, and it is more so important to recognize this urban expansion process is irreversible, we know for the fact, but at least if we can regulate all these mechanisms, we would be able to reduce the significant impact of the flooding, says the author. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says a time-honored connect that will help bridge the gulf. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about the relationship between India and Oman, and how Oman has been able to contribute to the peace in that particular region, that is in the Gulf region, and it is also been able to establish relationship in the entire West Asian region, and is able to even mediate in couple of instances. Let's take the example of what is the author trying to convey. The first the author takes into picture is that we have the ruler, the Sultan of Oman, Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, who will be visiting India from December 16 on a state visit. This will be the very first time that he is making a visit to India after taking over in Jan 2020. Then we have the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, who had visited Oman in February 2018, and this also happens to be Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first visit as a Prime Minister to Oman. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi headed to Oman, couple of things were discussed. One is with respect to the trade, second is with respect to the defense, and third is with respect to the security. On the trade front, what they wanted to do was enhance the export and the import. India will basically export couple of products like the agriculture and, for example, services like the IT. And when it comes to the defense, India is known for producing its own indigenous variety as well. And at the same time, we are also good at maritime exercises as well. So what will India do? India will make exports of some of the indigenously designed products, and at the same time, it will also cater to the mutual cooperation and also teach their staff as well as administrative and army personnel different kinds of modalities when it comes to defense. and at the same time, when it comes to the security, they would be sharing the information sharing about what? About the criminals who are present in the society. So basically, we have all these that were decided between India as well as Oman during the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Oman. And when it comes to the international affairs, what has been the major role of Oman? Oman has been able to ensure that there is peace and tranquility in this part. Let me explain how. For example, Qatar did not have good relationship with UAE as well as with Saudi Arabia. So at this particular moment, if it was any other country, it would have got influenced by Saudi Arabia and UAE, and it would have tilted in favor of Saudi Arabia. But what did Oman do? Oman remained independent. Oman remained neutral as well. It is at this particular moment, it completely remained neutral. It did not favor Saudi Arabia. It did not favor Qatar as well. So wheresoever there was mentality of advantage or benefit for one of the countries, so if it was one relationship where if the merit was in the times merit was tilted towards Qatar, then Oman supported Qatar. If merit was towards Saudi Arabia, it supported Saudi Arabia and held a balanced view. So it is in this region, it was able to act independently, able to think independently, act in a sovereign manner, and supported those parties which had merits, which were neutral, and ultimately supported those parties and denied the other parties that their work was not good. This is on one side. And at the other side, when you look at this entire Gulf region, you have Saudi Arabia, you also have United Arab Emirates and Oman, which were acting as a trio of key strategic partners in the entire Gulf region. Then we have Sultan Qaboos, who was always favorably disposed towards India, invited Indian companies and professionals to undertake projects apart from sourcing supplies from India, and we had a very good relationship between India and Oman as well. We had many Indian people who were also present in Oman. These Indian diaspora started acting as the mediators and also gelling the relationship between Oman as well as India, and India and Oman diaspora relationship improved over a period of time, and what we had was an evolving, vibrant relationship between India as well as Oman. Subsequently, if you look at how things have worked out in this entire region, during the Cold War and thereafter, the Arab world was largely ambivalent towards India. So the Arab world did not want to speak properly to India, and they were tilted towards Pakistan as well. One country which always had a balanced view towards India happened to be Oman. So even during the Cold War period, when many countries in the Gulf region tilted towards Pakistan, it was Oman which ultimately had a very stable mind, and it espoused the very thought of peace between India and Pakistan and always opened doors to India as well. Oman has always been an island of peace. It has pursued a foreign policy which is based on twin strands of moderation and mediation, including a policy of deliberate neutrality in dealing with regional issues and conflicts. Then we have United States and Iran, which also were not in a good relationship, and Oman was the country which was able to base its argument, support both the countries, and ensure that there is peace between Iran as well as United States of America. Then we also have Abraham Accords, where in the Abraham Accords we have Israel, we have UAE, and we also had Egypt and United States of America all come together, discuss the patterns and eventualities that had to be concluded in the near future. And one of the countries which also played a key role when it comes to this entire saga of the Abraham Accords happens to be Oman. So much before the Abraham Accords, in fact, there were Israel, UAE and Bahrain in September 2020. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a surprise visit to Oman in 2018, once again confirming the importance of Oman in the region. So it has been able to act as a peacemaker and has been able to act as a vanguard of supporting peace and tranquility in the entire West Asian region. That is one part. Now, if we have to look into what has been the contributions of Oman to India, it has been able to have a very significant strategic partnership. Oman is a crucial pillar of India's West Asia policy, with their multifaceted engagement increasing on a more strategic level. We had the Prime Minister from India go to Oman. We've also had the Sultan come from Sultan. They also have their Sultan come from Oman to India. And when you go back to the year 2008, we have Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who visited Oman in November 2008 and is based on twin pillars of mutual trust and shared interest. We've also had couple of interactions on the military level as well. We've been able to have naval exercises as well. We also have exercises with respect to their military, their air force, as well as on the naval front. In fact, we have also executed number of projects. During the Persian Gulf crisis in 2019, the Indian Army launched Operation Sankalp. So remember, Operation Sankalp is taken up by India to ensure the safe passage of Indian flagships, which most often operated from the coast of Oman. Then we have the Memorandum of Understanding on Dukkam Port. So where is this Dukkam Port? This can be a very important factor. So the Dukkam Port is a port that is present in the country of which country? It is present in the country of Oman. And we have also had security cooperations, providing basic facilities, operation turnaround and other logistics that have been provided. In fact, trade and commerce forms yet another important pillar of the engagement. Bilateral trade during the financial year 2020-23 reached 12.388 billion, and there are over 6,000 Indian-Oman joint ventures in Oman as well. India was also the second largest market for Oman's crude oil exports for the year 2022, and India and Oman have also launched RuPay debit card in Oman, a key footprint of India's initiative of promoting digital India infrastructure. So whenever we speak about Oman, it has always supported us. We've always had independent thinking. We have had sovereign relationship between both the bodies, and in fact, we also have a major project which is linking us. There is a proposal from South Asia Gas Enterprise Stage, a private consortium based in India, to lay a 1,400 kilometer long deep sea pipeline from Oman to India for the transfer of gas. These are some of the measures that have also been taken as well. The list of convergence and the shared interest in thus long and limitless, and as a result, what we have is a very beautiful relationship between India and Oman is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Pannun issue can cause serious damage to ties if not addressed, says US lawmakers. What is this article speaking about? First, let us understand what happened between India and Canada, and then let's come back to India and United States of America. What happened between India and Canada? There was one of a fundamentalist. This person happens to be a Khalistani who was based out of Canada. What did this person do? This person was aiming to interfere in the internal affairs of India, and at the same time he was supporting the cause of Khalistan in India. This person was killed in Canada, and the allegation is that Indian agency could have committed this act. So he happens to be a citizen of Canada. He was based out of Canada. He was a person who was in India and eventually settled down in Canada, now a citizen of Canada. This person was killed in Canada, and as a result, we have Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, who made an allegation where in the Parliament of Canada that this person was assassinated or killed by the Indian agencies. Whenever there is an assassination or any such action that is initiated, it has to happen on a closed door. Even if it has happened, this should have a back channel diplomacy taking place, and ultimately Canada should have asked questions to India, and India should have provided supporting documents to Canada, and ultimately this should have been settled on an amicable basis. But you had Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who went about clamoring in the entire Parliament that India has committed a serious breach, and as a result, India's relationship with Canada ultimately came to a standstill. It is at this particular moment we also have a bleak relationship between India and Canada. Indian people who were going to Canada were also issued and asked to be careful as well, and at the same time, number of diplomats who were working for both the countries were asked to go back and head back to their countries. There were only minimal number of diplomats who were present in each other country. So this suffered a serious drop in the relationship between India and Canada. That's the first point. The second point is similar such allegation if not made by USA, but it has hinted saying India, that there was a person called as Pannun. This person is present in United States of America. Indian agencies have been trying to assassinate this citizen of United States of America, but this is not an allegation that is made directly like how it happened in Canada, but there are hints given by United States of America to the Indian agencies. Now the question is, if India ever continues to operate in such a way, is it not a violation of their laws? That is what they say, and ultimately they say that because such actions have been initiated by India, they are not confirming it yet, but they are saying if such actions are initiated by India in order to eliminate those fundamentals, this is a violation of rule of law, this is a violation of the established principles, and ultimately the relationship between India and United States of America may suffer. So as of now, they are only saying that we have a issue that is based out of United States of America, and this person is being trying to be killed by the agencies of India, which is what they say and lay claim. But as of now, we do not have any concurrent proof. If at all such a decision has been taken by the agencies of India, and if India is supporting this initiative, in that case this could lead to a drop in the relationship between India and United States of America, say few US lawmakers. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about inflation. So the article here goes on to say that what we have been seeing and facing in India is a large scale inflation for a very long time. The author takes into picture this concept of top. What is this top? Top basically includes tomato, onion and potato, which triumvirate of India's most widely consumed vegetables, onion prices. So this tomato, onion and potato, whose prices have been increasing over a period of time, and inflation has been boosting as well, and at the same time we do not have enough groundwater in couple of cities and couple of places world in India, and at the same time we do not have enough water and irrigation in this part, and because we do not have any of these options, what we will also have is inflation not dropping anytime soon, and it will continue to skyrocket. Further, we also have pulses and sugar, whose prices have also been increasing over a period of time. So in order to reduce it, RBI has kept its stand completely away. With the RBI having opted to refrain from raising rates for now, it is the responsibility of the government to help temper inflation or risk suffering and erosion in the broader consumption and economic growth, says the author. So the author in this case goes on to say that we have the inflation which is persisting. It has continued to grow and increase over a period of time. If at all this has to be reduced, RBI has kept its policy rate same ways. So it is the responsibility and the onus of the government to take measures to ultimately reduce the inflation that is existing in the market, is what is this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.